This week's take is one that I love to talk about, and I think one that you're starting to warm up to. I think so. We might get a good conversation here. And this take here has got to do with the Dallas Mavericks. I hate to sort of come back to this team and the fact that they have what I proclaimed already the greatest player of all time currently at the start of his career. And it's clear that the Dallas Mavericks have to upgrade their roster because there's not enough talent on it. And let's be clear here as well, Kemba Walker is not going to come and save their season. They're going to need to try and be creative in trying to find the right pieces to fit around Luka for them to be able to climb up the Western Conference standings. They're sort of sitting at that 500 mark, sort of in that play-in spot. And it's probably indicative of the talent that they have as a whole. And I hated the Porzingis trade. We talked about this, I think, about 12 months ago when it went down and what they got back for it. I thought it was a really poor trade. And Porzingis and the sort of style of player that he is the ideal sort of player that they want to sort of get, that sort of stretch four, that sort of big that can go all the way to the perimeter and knock down that three. And look, I don't know. I guess I'll throw it to you a little bit. What are your thoughts on some players that we can, also the Mavs can obviously try to get on their wish list? Let's be clear, because I don't know whether they got the assets to actually make a move this season.
So I defended the Kristaps trade. The logic of it was he didn't want to fit into that role. So I think even if he fits the mold from our standpoint on paper, the chemistry issue I think was quite significant. But the reason why it was a good trade was they went from a 3-year contract to a 2-year contract, essentially, right? Which allows them to do a move a year quicker. The problem with the Dallas Mavericks, and I think this has been an ongoing problem with them, even their championship run, you could make a case and say it happens there as well. They give out odd contracts. They get very drawn to a big name and they want to lock them up for 5 years. That fails. And then they use that cap space on random players for 2 or 3 years and they lock themselves down. Tim Hardaway was a great takeaway from that trade, but he really hasn't been a significant impact player now for almost 2 years. They got Finney Smith signed up, great story. And unfortunately, he's probably taken a bit of a dip now. Maybe your classic case of gets the contract, starts to relax a little bit too much. They pick up Christian Wood, doesn't probably address half the things. Who do you trade? You trade everyone around Luka, let's be honest, right? But who's going to take these pieces back? And I think there is a consciousness that I know this sounds very conspiracy a little bit, but I reckon other GMs are conscious of the fact that Dallas is a legitimate threat if you help them become a legitimate threat. And right now, they're kind of burdened with their own choices that if you're a playoff team on the Western Conference, you have no motivation to give them an assist because you don't actually want to face them in the playoffs,
Absolutely.
which, we saw last year with the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns had the better team, but Luka is strong enough on his own. If he's there and he has some assistance to get there, you don't want to build them up. So what are they going to do? I actually envision the Dallas Mavericks waiting 2 years. I don't think Dallas is going to do much in the next 2 years. It's a bit disappointing. We talked about the Luka LeBron sort of parallel where he might drag a team to the finals eventually. He almost did it last year. But yeah, look, it's a bleak outcome for me. I know my head's in the clouds right now, but I'm actually really grounded on this one. It's not looking good for Dallas for the next 2 years minimum.
I think the thing here, though, 2 years is a lifetime, man. That's an eternity in the NBA. And look, I guess, like I said, I don't know whether they've got the assets. And like you said, you're saying that other teams may not be willing parties to come to the table to make trades. But at the end of the day, every team has its own agendas. I think some of the teams that are sort of more lottery bound at this point, they know they're not going to be serious playoff contenders for at least 3 to 5 years. They're probably teams that have assets that they're sort of willing to perhaps move. But I think Luka's still young enough to sort of for the Mavs to target sort of that talent that's in that sort of 20 to 25 sort of age bracket. It's not necessarily like veterans they need to bring in that sort of sense. I think they just got to do something. I think, like I said, I've obviously talked a bit about Luka, and it would be a huge waste, I guess, if the Mavs did sit pat for 2 years with the sort of the talent that they have in Luka and surrounding him with such a terrible sort of cast around him, isn't it?
I think you look at Dallas, what is their draft capital? It's pretty stock standard. They're not acting like someone like OKC with a plethora of picks. But even the players themselves, the contracts are like there's no desirable contract of like that's a really good steal, like only 8 million for this player per year, or you know what, that's a big contract, but we get off their salary next season, a young team would do it. They're they're almost akin, like basically them in Utah. That Utah was the standings person I was looking at that felt similar. Utah has a lot of great pieces that other teams would want to take. I reckon you put Laurie Markkinen, you put Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson onto Dallas. That makes them a better team. But the difference is, why is Utah going to take anything back from Dallas? Because it's tit for tat sort of player, but it's the draft capital that they don't really have to offer or package with things. And you also don't want to lose that because those probably aren't the deals that are going to push you anywhere further than they've already been. Like Dallas has shown a willingness to be aggressive when the opportunity arises, the Kristaps trade being that one. But how often do those opportunities arise per season? Maybe once, one team gets that kind of deal and it doesn't always work. And yeah, look, I mean, we're going to go around in circles if we don't stop. But yeah, I feel like we'll be talking about this next year where Dallas is middling again and Luka pulls it out and they've made one trade that seems interesting, but it just never goes further.
Yo, this is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.